Alright guys, today's watch was the Wolfman, which I had never seen before, and I've seen the other Universal Monster Wolfman movies from the 1930s and 1940s. And wow, I bought this for $2 at a pawn shop, so I don't feel bad spending this money. It's cheaper than renting it. But God, this movie. So the Universal Monster movies, I enjoy some of them. I think that they, in terms of being dated, they are definitely dated in a way, but they still got charm to them in some of them. And those movies, I think, especially the first Wolfman from the 1930s or 40s, is actually pretty good and really solid, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and it's got a very cheesy pleasure to it, because of course it's from 1940, so it's gonna be a dated movie, but it's so fun and interesting. And going into this movie, I was excited. The cast for this movie, and I waited until now to see this. This came out in 2010. The cast: Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, Emily Blunt, Hugo Weaving. It's directed by Joe Johnston. This seems like it's shooing to be a great movie for me, and watching it, wow, this was one of the most, for me personally, and if you don't feel this way, then that's fine. Have your own opinion. I'm glad that you have your own opinion on that, on this movie, but man, I couldn't stand this. This was so dull, so bland. There was nothing, no character development in a way that was interesting, I guess I could say, because there is bare bones character development. All these actors in this movie, it felt so, they felt so disinterested in the movie, and the movie, I can give a positive to this. This movie feels like it could have been done, like, in the same vein of the 1940s Wolfman. Like, it seems like it could be in that same universe, except for it's more bloody. This is definitely a more bloodier movie on purpose than the original ones. But this, just in terms of the performances, it was so bland. The story was so bland. There was nothing that I could grip onto. I felt like there was no heart, no soul to this movie. It felt like it was literally by the numbers. Like, it was kind of the story of the Wolfman again, the original one, but with a couple differences, but they're minute, and they're not anything to really to make this movie better than the other one. And like I said, I can get into a couple positives, and they're very small, they're very scarce, but like, this is a weird positive, but I love how they use the classic Universal logo that was used in the monster movies, but it was colored instead of black and white. That's a weird thing to say about a movie, a little thing like that, but I thought that was a really cool thing. Just seeing it, I was like, yes, that means I'm probably gonna maybe enjoy this movie. But nope. I do like also that this movie is bloody and tries to be violent, and I watched the unrated director's cut, which is apparently 16 minutes different than the theatrical version. So maybe I should watch the theatrical version. I usually try to watch unrated because I feel like, for better or worse, unrated might be better for me. I don't know. But I watched the unrated cut. Maybe the theatrical cut might have benefited from being shorter, because this felt so long. And it just didn't feel like it was way too long for me and way too dull, so it felt like it really, with those two things, made it seem so much less interesting for me. And the pacing is like the original Universal Monster movies, but in some ways worse. I don't get how that works, because I know pacing nowadays for these type of movies, especially the Universal Monster movies, are not going to be usually considered positive, but the pacing and what they are and how they're considered hokey now. But this one had the same kind of pacing, and it felt very slow, very uninteresting, and I didn't like, compared to the first Wolfman in the 40s. This one is definitely worse for me, and I thought it was way less interesting, way less paced, way worse paced, and it felt like, I know this is way longer, but it felt worse in terms of how long it felt. It was just really, really boring. But like I said, the positives I can give it: the Universal logo at the beginning, that was cool. The movie's bloody, and I think that benefited a little bit, but it didn't like make the movie overly like great. It just made a cool little tidbit for it. And I thought that some of the kills were good. There was one where like this guy gets the wolf claws through his mouth, so it flies out through mouth holes from the backside. That was cool, and that might just be an unrated kill. I don't know, but like I said, I didn't see the theatrical. I just saw the unrated cut. But that was cool, and some of the kills were cool and nice. And I thought that the ending with Benicio del Toro and Emily Blunt, like their last scene together, it's kind of bland, but it worked better than the rest of the movie. Like, I didn't buy them in their kind of romantic link, I guess. Like, I didn't buy it through the whole movie, and then at the end I felt like there was a little bit more with Emily Blunt, with her emotions towards him when he's a wolf, before, like, he turns back. But and whenever she kills him, I think that actually, like, that felt like a good scene. Like, I enjoyed that scene. I thought it worked better than most scenes. And like I said, it stinks because those are the only positives I can give this, for me. The only positives I felt. And apparently Guillermo del Toro was going to direct this movie, which you could have had. That would have been... I mean, I feel like Guillermo del Toro, even at his worst, and I haven't even seen all his movies. All the movies I've seen are fantastic that he's done. But even what he probably has at his worst movie is probably not even as bad as this, at least in my opinion. So I'm curious to see what his vision of this movie would have been. That would have been really cool to see. That would have been great. I would have loved to see him do his own version of this, because he kind of did that with Shape of Water, with Creature from the Black Lagoon in a way. But I would have loved to see, because he's very un-Hollywood, and I think that would have benefited from this movie, because this movie, I think, probably because of the studio, like, they wanted it to be like these older movies, but then they wanted it to have a current feel to it. But I felt like they failed that in both ways. And like in the picture in the back of the movie with Emily Blunt, it looks like she's wearing a regular outfit from the current age, even though she's not. But they did that on purpose to go, okay, it looks like it's a modern movie. But it's not. It's set in the same time frame that the other Wolfman movies are set in. So I don't know. And I read online, like, reviews on this and how the studio felt, and like one of the studio execs said, like, this is one of the worst things I've ever made. I don't think it's one of the worst things Universal's ever made. There are plenty more that Universal has made that's worse than this. I think it's just dreadfully dull, dreadfully boring. It has a few positives, like I said, for me, but it's just not one that I really enjoyed at all. And maybe watching it again, maybe watching the theatrical version might have been a difference, but as of now, this just really... it didn't sell me. This one felt like all the performances were dull. The movie was dull. Some cool things, like I said, the action and violence was cool sometimes. The last scene with Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro was cool, but I felt like it was, for the most part, phoned in besides that. So overall, it was really, really hard to get through.